Laura's here. Teresa's here. She has her phone. Her shoulder's back in place. We can start class. Are you in pain still? Yeah, she is. Okay. That's only because she is. Again, if you did not hear, that is Steve Helsell back there. Steve is the new lab assistant. All right. Be taking over for Mike Wegman. He likes bacon. Okay. All right. Let's start. Now, again, if you go out to the P drive for the class, there is a folder with today's date on it. What I'm going to do is go over the stuff that's in that folder with you now. There is a series of PHP scripts. What we're going to end up doing, if you'd all look at the screen for just a second, we're going to end up making a quantum leap between today, where we're going to just talk about some PHP and some scripting and some other stuff, and Thursday. Thursday's lecture is also scheduled to be just an hour long. All right? We may finish up next week. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. But I wanted to show you this because this is what we'll go over on Thursday. The project is starting to come together now. All right, so where are they? I think it's that one. You won't see all this stuff anyway. So there we all are. All right, so Mark says, oh, pick me, pick me. Okay, there's Mark. All right, there are the movies that Mark picked. There's the other ones. You can click on another one, and it'll show you a bigger, that's the biggest. I guess I could go out and probably make a bigger copy of the JPEG, but I just left it at that. I thought that was plenty big. And you'll notice if I change it, now there's John's. It's automatically putting John's name in there. This is the stuff we'll go over next week. You won't have that yet. So next week we'll be able to drag that in here, and then it'll go into the garbage. You can see the little sprite that's in there right now, so if you do put something in there, it looks like we put something in the garbage. See that? But next week we'll put in the jQuery where it'll actually get rid of the stuff for us. Okay? And what it'll do too is if we take on the waterfront here and we put it in here, it'll remove it from here and it'll put it over here in its right position. Does that make sense? All right. The stuff that we're going to go through today is just PHP stuff. It isn't this. So what we're going to do on Thursday, like I said, is we'll take that project that I gave you the first 2 parts of, and this is part 3. Next week we'll go over part 4. There might be a part 5 the week after that, but next week is jQuery. If I have time to do the Ajax stuff before then, we'll do that next week too. Otherwise, it'll be the following week, and then we're finished. So we've got, this is 9 weeks, including this week. All right, and so that means 9, 8, 7. Well, you'll still have at least 6 full weeks. Those of you, and some of you are in here and you know who you are. I'm not looking at I'll look at Steve. All right, Antoine. I'll look at the 2 of them because they're not in the class, at least not officially in the class. If you have not done your requirements document yet for this class, it was due before break. Please do it. Put it in your completed folder for the class as soon as possible. Okay, now we can return to regular programming. All right. So the stuff that's in there for today, let's take a quick look at it. And then we'll go over each one individually. All right, I've already got the stuff loaded here. You'll notice there's about six different scripts that are in here. And some of these have more than one script in them. But the first one, this looks very similar to stuff we've already done, but it's a little bit different. So I just want to mention the differences. All right, what we've always done in the past is we've created separate variables. One variable for our server name, one for our username, one for our password, and one for the name of the database we want to connect to, which is totally fine to do. All right, but the actual recommendation when you're doing this is you take those 4 values and you put them into an array. Let me make sure I'm taping here. That you put them into an array, all right, and then just use the array like this. Do you have to do that? I mean, does the program actually work any better doing it this way? No. This is just considered a more concise way of doing things. Plus, and we've talked about this earlier in other classes, this connection file, do not ever, ever, ever put that into a place where other people, prying eyes, can see it. Why? How about 4 reasons right here? Especially 2 reasons right there. So when you talk security, you want to always make sure, and again, you would have your own account for this. It wouldn't be root with no password. All right? But still, that said, you want to take this and bury it someplace. Not only do you want to take it and bury it someplace, all right, you very well might give it some kind of an encrypted file name. Okay, I don't know. There's a lot of different things that you can do. But always err on the side of caution. Always assume somebody's going to be able to get to your stuff. And pardon my French, but screw with you. All right? And you're best off with that kind of a mentality. You really and truly are. You know, you read all the stuff, you know, whether it's like a Home Depot or another place, you know, you read about all that stuff where people have breaches all the time. You hear about it in hospitals. You know, I don't know if I ever told you this, and this, I can't make up stuff this good. My brother Dick, and I don't know if you've ever, maybe you've seen him, I don't know, but he's been in here a few times in the last few years. He actually was breached 3 different times. First, when one of the major insurance companies got hit a few years ago, now of course that was in his insurance company. They got all of his information. Then the VA got hit. He's a Navy veteran. They got all of his information. All right? Then his bank got hit, and they got all of his information. Doug was so enthralled with that he had him come in and speak with one of his security classes. And the funny thing is, he did almost nothing online. It wasn't like, oh, well, he does his banking. He did almost nothing online. All right? And now, to get his credit and stuff back in order, basically it took about 2 years before everything was done. All right? So when you hear about stuff like that, you want to, like I said, just make sure that you err on the side of caution. So when we run this, this is going to be the field that we're setting up to basically set up our new connection. So we're saying connect to what? Connect to the movies database using localhost, using root for a username, and no password. Again, this stuff would all change, especially this, if you went live and put it on a server. All right? And if you haven't heard, has John hit everybody in here? And Steve, you'll probably have to get one too if you haven't already. But John's been having people sign a piece of paper. Has he had you sign that? At least a couple of you say yes. If you haven't, talk to John today. What he has done through the grant that we have here, I mean, I've asked for 6 years. I've asked to get us 1 or 2 servers in here, ideally 2 servers. You heard this, Steve, when you were here. And one of the servers was so that we could go and use it for the 157 and the 119 in the first semester. I'd already have you doing FileZilla and uploading and stuff like that. I'd have you doing it from the beginning. All right. It took 4 years before they bought them. Okay. Then it took another year before they put them together. Then once they put them together, and you remember they were here, then they moved them. Nobody will tell me exactly where they are right now. But if you don't know, in the corner of the building, in the 1100 building, where that's all the people who have moved over to, or either have moved or are moving to Milton. You know, that's all the I/O and all the other programs. So they're moving in there. They're moving a bunch of the radiography and a bunch of the medical programs in there. So why am I telling you that? Because that's where the knock is. That's where they moved all the servers. But they've got to move them out there because those people don't want that stuff there. They don't want IT coming into their area. So they're not sure where to put it. And they're in the process of moving all that stuff. So I have no idea where those servers are. I have no idea if they're hooked up. Ben Carroll worked an entire semester hooking them up, testing them, etc. So we have no idea where the hell any of that stuff is. So along came this grant that we have, you know, part of the thing that Steve's under now, all right? And through that, John was able to purchase for us a 3-year membership with a company called Site 5. That's that piece of paper that John had you sign. Because what he is doing is he is setting up for each one of you, you will have an account on Site 5 that you will be able to get to outside of BTC. And it even has in it, for example, things like a control panel. And just for Travis, that control panel has Joomla on it. All right? And it has WordPress on it. And it has MySQL on it. And a few other things. So if you want to be able to use some of this stuff, all right, from outside of here, you'll be able to. And get used to using something with it with an administrative type of interface to it. Now, when everything's all set up, when everything's cool, I'll have John take over, and because I'll be listening too. He set me up an account. I've done nothing with it. All right? But once he does that, then it'll be something that all of you can use. What I have asked, if there's enough room, and there should be, is that all of you, kind of like the way it is here, that once you graduate, I want your stuff to stay out there for a minimum of a year. So if you need to get to it once you graduate, after you upload stuff to it, whatever, or if you're going out for a job interview and somebody says, Teresa, can I see a copy of some of your work? Well, do you have a computer? You know, you get onto that and you can put your stuff out there. Does that make sense? All right, that's what I've asked for. Hopefully that's going to be happening soon. John's been, you know, the old saying, he's been running around like a chicken without a head trying to set up these accounts and do everything else. But he had some problems with Site 5. But supposedly they've all been rectified. We can talk about that with him this afternoon. All right, so this should echo out. Anybody want to guess what that's going to say? Database host information? What's that going to say? How about this? How about that? All right. Number of connection errors? Ideally, what will that be equal to? 0. Because if there was a connection error, it'll be because either that's wrong, or that's wrong, or that's wrong, or that's wrong. Right? So if we do have any connection errors, we're kind of dead in the water. So we say we got a connection error, okay, and we get the hell out by exiting. Otherwise, I just echoed the message, successful connection. Now, of course, once you put this live, you would never have a message like successful connection. I just put that there so that you can see it. That's all. So again, if I come out here now, and here's the first one, and it's localhost, telling us what it's via, but that's no big thing. No connection errors, and it's a successful connection. All right. Now I went through that and spent more time than we'll probably spend on most of the other ones, but hopefully all that makes sense to you, because every single script, all the other 5 that are in here, all the other ones, they all use this one. And I got it to work for one, and literally I just copied it into the other ones. Does that make sense? Now, instead of copying it in like this, okay, what I could have done is I could have just put it up someplace else and just referenced it. I'm going to show you how to do that stuff on Thursday. All right, so here's the next one. So we've connected, and now, well, I guess I've got the old, this is an older version. Okay, this has got the same stuff. I thought I had the connection in there. I guess I don't. But now all we're going to do is we're going to spit out our data. For each movie, what I want to be shown is the ID and the title and the description. So in other words, what that right there that you see in gray, what that should be doing, it's as though we went in and did a MySQL minus U root, use movies, oops, use movies, all right, select star from movies. See a problem with that? It's a little bit hard to see. All right. But notice when we look at it the other way, so when I come in here now, okay, it's not beautiful, but it's highly functional as far as I'm concerned. Because what it shows, and I just put it in an HTML table, are the IDs, the titles, and the descriptions. All right, there's 25 movies in there, if you remember that. Now, I've been playing around with this table. The reason I'm telling you that is if I go in and I insert another movie in here, instead of being number 26, mine's going to be like about 50, because I've been adding and removing movies as I've been playing with this stuff. The only reason I'm telling you that is if you go and add another movie, yours will be 26. Mine won't be. Does that make sense? Now I can always go and run the initialization script again in here. All right, where and we went over that in the last class where we built the database. All right, I can do that, but I'm not going to. I just wanted you to see that. All right. Yes. I'm sorry, oh, the question was, okay, okay, let me answer what I think you asked, okay? So you tell me if that's what you asked or not. All right, so this was, boy, I don't even remember. I think it was under DIP Project, 3.5, DIP Project. It must be under Part 2. Database. So the movies thing that's right here, that's the one. This has got all of your information in it, okay? Notice what happens first. Drop the database if it exists. So it's gone. Everything that's in there is gone. Yes. Now, if you wanted to make sure you kept a backup copy, then we could have copied this. There literally is a duplicate. You can duplicate it. All right? Yeah. Yes. Right. And there's even other stuff you can do. There's a command that exists in MySQL that's like MySQL dump, and it'll literally make a backup for you. All right, you could incorporate something like that in here that said before you drop this, you could check and see if it existed, and if it did, you could make a backup copy of it and do something like give it the current date, the name of the database, / backup or something like that. And yeah, you'd probably end up doing something like that. But yeah, the way this is right now, this is going to be gone. Right. Right. And there's some other things in here. Now I realize, if you say, Jeff, it was last spring, so it was a year ago when we looked at any of this MySQL stuff. I get that. But if you remember, most people will tell me, especially when they're getting ready to graduate, one class I really liked here was the MySQL class, the 147, because it really wasn't hard. It made a lot of sense. All right. So the reason I'm telling you that is when we go and look at this stuff, for instance, when we look at the stuff on Thursday, what I showed you before, all right, well, you might say that isn't in any order. Yes, it is. It's in order based on first name. See that? D, J, K, L, etc. And that's all that it was on. We could have done this so it was by last name. We could have done it by, when the person logged, give everybody an ID number. There's all sorts of things we could have done, but I didn't. All right? Did that answer the question you asked? Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, I already told you this, that I'm basing this off of a course that I took, still in the middle of taking, online. And Steve, if you've never heard of the company, you should go out there and check them out. It's Udemy, UDEMY.com. All right, and you just sign up for an account. They don't deluge you with emails. You get some. But I have probably either taken or I'm signed up for about 200 courses through them, believe it or not. But out of those 200 courses, I'd guess 70 to 80% are free. Plus, they had a thing this last weekend, all of their courses, everything. And I just bought one. I couldn't. But they were all $5. Every course they had, 10,000 courses. And some of them were regularly $700 or $800. They were $5. Well, why didn't you buy more? Because I've got, like I said, with 200 of them, and I've taken about 40 of them. I'm in the middle of about 50 more. After a while, I can't do this anymore. I just literally don't have that in me to do it. All right. But what they had in there was you logged in. Okay. And when you logged in, it let you into the database. Well, I decided to change that. All right. So I changed it. So when it's called login, but you put in your first name and you put in your last name. And then what this is going to show are all the movies that you put in as likes. Does that make sense? All right, so let me run it, and then we'll go back and we'll take a look at the stuff that's in it. Yes, but the point is there really isn't exactly a login in it. All right, because if I come in here and I put in you, and it has to match. All right, I could have done an upper and lower case, but I didn't do any of that stuff. I think that's the way it's in there. So those are the ones that you picked. All right. But if I come back again, Yeah, it's grabbing the stuff from the database. Yes, it is. Yeah, we're going to look at it in just a second. And I put it in a table again. It's not as wide as it was before, but that again, that's neither here nor there. It really doesn't matter. And with mine, so notice if I put in here, all right, it worked. Because MySQL, you may or may not remember, is pretty much case independent when it looks in the database. So it actually, I didn't even think about that. It should. Oops. But if I do come in and spell my name wrong, I just get that, which is pretty much what you'd expect. Because there isn't anybody, it's checking the database for somebody with that name. Still successful connection, etc. All right, so if we look at the files that are connected to that one, this one I showed you already. I don't think it really pays to talk much more about that one. Yep. That's it. No, there's no PHP link in there. Take a look at what the link, so to speak, is this. That's calling this file. That's where all the work is being done. So all this is doing is it's presenting the form for you, and when you click the submit button, it's calling display.php, and it's posting. All right. So that's all of it. That's its whole job. I could have made it a PHP file. So this file right here, this login.html, no, I'm just saying I could have opened that particular file. I could have opened it up. That's opening it up in a browser right there. That's not opening it up through XAMPP. But notice if I type this in now, this isn't going to work. All right, because now I'm trying to parse PHP in the browser. And it's trying, but it doesn't really have a clue. And the funny thing is it shows you everything that's in here. This would be good stuff if I was going to be a hacker and I wanted to come in and find stuff. There'd be some good stuff in here. Why? Because, well, it shows me, I can see I've got movies, I've got favorites, all right? So I can look in here and there's movie goers, so I can find out table names, I can find out field names, I can find out a bunch of different stuff in here, all right? Then if I'm going in and I'm going to be a mean person, I can come in and I can start saying, well, is this possibly open to different kinds of injection? All right, and that's what I wanted to show you in here. See that? Real escape string. That's like HTML escape string. There's a bunch of different escape strings. All right. What that's going to do is it's going to make sure, because when people come in and try to use SQL injection, we may have talked about this before, I don't remember. But you say something like select star from, let's say, users, where username equals Bob, I don't know, or, and this is where you can do things, 1 equals 1. It's an or, and 1 should always equal 1, right? So if you do this, and you have to monkey around with the single and double quotes and stuff in here, but the point is, if you do that, okay, if it gives me everybody from users and it gives me all their information, you'd be amazed at how many, you go out to different things that are on the web, that people put their user stuff out there, they don't encrypt it, they don't encrypt their passwords. So if it's got username and password, now I'm golden, right? Now I can get into it. I'm anybody. And no, I'm not telling you to do this. I'm telling you not to do that because it's not legal. So don't do that. But if for some stupid reason you do it, don't do it from your own machine. All right? Do it from someplace where at least it's going to be pretty darn hard for you to get caught. Because they can trace back anything just about any place. All right? So if we look at that, so we're trying to do that here. And it's the first name and the last name. The ID is an integer, so there's no way you're going to be able to screw that up. All right? Now, the other thing, too, is remember, because Mark had asked about this, and when we looked at this thing, We don't want to allow you to put in something like this. You know, so if I come in here and say alert, hello. All right, so if I put that in and I log in and it didn't, but, well, again, I'm still not doing this to the server. But if I do that and it comes up with hello, that's bad. That says I can now go in and I can enter different kinds of, you know, JavaScript or whatever. And if I enter different JavaScript or whatever in there and it runs, now I can try to put a bunch. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put in something like a select statement to see what happens. All right. And so you say, well, I thought you just handled that. No, this will handle part of it. But if you may or may not remember, there's a thing that's called HTML entities. And what that'll do is so if I come in here and type in this, oops. So if I come in here and type in again, what I don't want to see as a developer is I don't want to see, okay, but I'm saying is what I don't want to see there is I don't want to see an alert box come up with hello in it. All right? But if I run that through HTML entities, what's going to happen is these are all going to be replaced. And so, big deal. They're not only are they going to be replaced, but they're going to be replaced, rather, before it goes and tries to parse it. It's not encrypted. What it's doing, literally, is it is changing this to this. And that has no meaning at all when you go in. It's not, you could look at it as a form of encryption, but literally with encryption, what you're doing is you're taking something and you're making it something else. You're really not doing that here. No, not at all. No, no. You're not doing encrypting like that. No, no. That's why what you'll see is when you start doing this stuff that you're going to run things like passwords, etc., through something like MD5 or SHA or whatever. There's a lot of different encryption mechanisms. In fact, PHP has their own. MySQL has their own. And I was looking at some code that this guy developed online, and he put it out there. And what he did was he took everything and he ran it through the encryption that you have in PHP. Then before he put it into MySQL, he ran it through their encryption. See what I'm saying? So he had 2 levels of encryption. All right? Try to do it the best you can, that's all. But again, as we've oft-times said, every time you build a better mousetrap, you know, the mice get smarter type of an idea. All right. So that gets us down to here. Anything look a little funky right there? It's great. No, I mean, anything else look a little different? Notice all the backticks? All right. True or false? I can create a table. I can create a table in MySQL, and I can call it a MySQL keyword like from. True or false? If I try doing it, all right, if I try doing it and I say select from, I'm going to get an error message. But if I put it in backticks, I can call it whatever the hell I want. That's why a lot of times you'll see backticks in here. All right, because then the name of your table or your field can be anything, even a keyword. But if you don't do that, you can run into problems. So think about what this is doing. All right, this is saying, give me the ID, give me the title, give me the description. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is, what I have to do is I have to bring in 3 different tables. My moviegoers table, let's look at them. My moviegoers table that's all of you and me, right? So that's the first one. All right, I can come in here and I can type in select star from movies. Now, I'm not going to do a star because you've already seen how ugly that is. So what I'll do is I'll say ID and title. I think it's movie ID. And that's not bad. All right? That's not bad. But the problem is, what I want is I want to be able to put in this, and I want to get this stuff. See what I'm saying? So I have to do a join. That should make sense to all of you. Here's the problem. That's the user ID. That's the movie ID. There's no field in common. There isn't one right now. Because if we take a look at the three tables that are in here, so if I describe moviegoers, all right, then if I describe movies, there is no field that's in common between those. One is the user ID, and one is the ID of the movie. There isn't a field in common. So what we could have done is we could have taken one of these, the user ID and put it in here, or the movie ID and put it in there. But you know what? In that case, it really doesn't make sense to do that. So what we did was we created one of those junction or join tables. This is when you really use one of those. Because why? Because it has the primary key of this table and the primary key of that table, and they're in there as co-primary keys. Now, I'm able to grab information from these two tables, but I have to include that table also. And that's why when you look at this, where I'm saying check the first name and check the last name, but join that table and that table. So I need all three tables in there. All right. And then just give me the results in an HTML table, so run it. And mark, again, going back, and I think you know this already, but that must be a PHP file because there's PHP in here. But you see where we're interspersing here. All right, there's some PHP right within our HTML, so we got to put in the tags. Here, we're putting it in right there. All right, and you've already seen this. So again, if I run it again, and if I come back now, and I don't want to run it from here, but I want to run it from here, let's put in somebody's we haven't put in yet. And it works. But it's got this information it's getting from the moviegoers table. This information is all the information in the movies table. But since I need to get information from both tables and I have no common field, that's why I brought it in the third table. Does that make sense? All right. A little bit of review, but it's all stuff that we've talked about before in earlier classes. Yes, yes. You could write the whole thing as a PHP file. There's a lot of different ways that it could be done. All right. Now, see this and this? Those question marks mean what we're using in here is what's referred to as a prepared statement. And what that says, for lack of better words, is I'll let you know at runtime which one of these I'm using. Okay? This makes it even harder. This makes it even harder for you to come in and break in and do things you aren't supposed to be doing. All right? When you do that, there's more work involved because the system needs you then. It needs to know which of these parameters. So if I've got two question marks here, I need to bind two different fields right there. All right? Both the fields are string fields, so you've got SS in there. Then I have to let you know what is my result, which is right there. And notice, I'm binding these, and it has nothing to do with these. And it may sound simple, but when you're doing this and binding the results, that has to be in the exact order as it is in the database. You can't change the order right there. And the rest of it is the same. So if I run this one, you already saw what it looked like, and that was in part 3. So part 4 is meant to basically look the same. But it's doing it through prepared statements. So I still log in. and I still get the same information. But again, this time we're doing it using prepared statements. All right? Now, this is all fine. But would you agree that everything we've been doing thus far has all been a select statement? In other words, you can sit there and you can do that. You can check all that stuff, but you can't right now. You can't add a new movie, and you can't delete an existing movie. So that's what the last two scripts in here are about. Let's take a quick look at those. And again, before you even ask, and you didn't, but I'm just saying before anybody can even ask, yes, this could have been done a bunch of different ways. These are two PHP files in here. There's the insert that literally is going to tell you to do the insert right there. And it's using, again, prepared statements. So again, they must be bound. All right, then you execute, then you close. And after you do all this stuff, then we want to display, call display and insert PHP. Again, it's one of those things where it might be easier to show it to you and then come back and talk about it some more. All right, so here it is, add data. All right, so I'm going to say insert. You say, oh, it looks the same. Well, let's go. There. See how that's new at the bottom here? The title and the description. What field out of those three fields I showed you before, what field is missing? Why? Why is that not there? This is stuff you should remember. It's an auto increment field. All right. So if I come through here and I say movie title, Harry Potter. Harry comes to Hogwarts for the first time. I submit. Okay, you say it's, well, what happened? There it is. All right, I guess I did clear it up somewhat before. Okay, but you see that it's in there. Does that make sense? So let's talk about, first of all, do you have to show all these? No. We could have just literally showed none of these and just had it come up and show this. And that's a lot of times that's what you get is a PHP form that just has that. Is what your header? Right here? Well, we'll take a look at it right now. Okay. And basically, that's what it is right there. All right. So what's happening? You know, I called it the other way, but we could have called insert first, and I mean the display and insert record first, because once you put the stuff in, it's going to call insert.php. All right. And believe it or not, the stuff, you know, and you've got this stuff now. Please, if you get a chance, run it off, take a look at it. Play with it a little bit. That's not the hard part. Really, because when you're adding a new record, the only thing we could come in and we could check. For instance, we could check the ID is going to be golden. We can't screw that up because we're not putting that in. Now, is it possible that, for instance, Casablanca, which is like number 2 on those movies of all times, wouldn't it be possible that somebody could do a remake of it? They did do a remake of Psycho. I think Vince Vaughn was in it. All right? Yeah. So what I'm saying is the title is not necessarily golden. You know, 2 of those movies that were in there, the titles are different, but one is Godfather and the other one's Godfather 2. All right? The description typically is going to be different, but you don't even know that. As Travis just said, yeah, they remade Annie. What if you used, what if the original Annie was in there and now this new Annie, or newer Annie, was also in it? You could use the same description because it's just different actors. All right? So the ID is the key here. All right? And again, we're not really using the ID in here. The ID becomes really, really, one more time, really important for the next script, which is the delete, because that's the key to everything. All right? And in here, again, I'll show you this. This is the last one, so we're finished after this. But we'll take a look quick at the last one that's in here. And again, how you do this would be totally up to you. Still have our connection. There's our delete and our display and delete. All right, notice what we have there. Everybody see that? Pretty obvious, right? They've each got a delete. Now, when I take my mouse, my cursor, and I mouse over this, notice what's going to come down here in our status bar. Look at the end of it. Yeah. You want to make sure you're removing the right movie, and since what's unique about each movie is its ID, that's what we appended onto the end of that. All right, we'll look at the code that does it in just a second. This might be a time where you do want to show everything. And notice I do not have anything in here for 26, so I can click delete. Now when I come down and look, there's no more 26. So I can also delete Harry Potter, and boom, come down here. Now remember, one of the, quote, bad things, unquote, out of using auto increment is we can't recover those numbers directly. Remember how I told you that with auto increment? Guess what? I lied. Okay? And the reason I'm telling you that is literally you're used to putting nothing in there, but if I manually go in right now, so if I go into the database, you've seen what the database looks like. So if I select, we'll just put in here, in fact, I'm going to put a movie in and then show you how I think at least we'd be able to, for lack of better words, cheat the system. So I'm going to put something new in here. And I don't like this because for some reason when I'm running it, it's putting a brand new blank one in there. Yeah, there's something wrong in the code, I think. We'll call it Harry Potter 2. More fun at Hogwarts. All right, and we'll submit it. Now we'll come into here. All right, and if I select star, in fact, let's not even, we'll say select movie ID and movie and title from movies. Okay, so notice what's in there. See that? And you go, well, now you don't have 26, you don't have 27, etc. You don't have any of those. What if I manually come in here and try to do this? So if I say insert into movies, and remember, one way we can do this is we can put in all the fields. Movie ID, title, description, values, and now I'm going to put in 26 and some about, oh boy, this is a classic, scary movie. A spoof on horror films. It says error, you have an error. Check. Maybe that was supposed to be double quotes. I don't remember. Although I thought single would have worked. Well, it's not. Now I've got to go back and do the whole thing. So, insert into movies. Title, ID, title, description. That should all be okay. Values. That should be okay. All right. Let's try it with double quotes and see if it takes that. I don't know if it will or not. And if I can't really criticize any of you because if this doesn't work, it's because I don't remember the darn syntax. So if this doesn't work, nope. But there should be a way that I can come back in here. Let's try doing this. I think the other two are set up that they're not mandatory. Oh, still not letting me. there's supposed to be something built into the system that you're not supposed to be able to do what I'm trying to show you right now. But I've read articles and I've seen where people have circumvented it and have done that and have recovered their numbers that they've lost. That's what I'm trying to show you. So I think there's a way to do it. You shouldn't do that. The problem is that if you end up having 500 movies and you're constantly adding and removing movies, you're going to have numbers that are going to be all over the place. All right? And that might bother people. I don't know. All right? So let's take a look at the code for this one. Yes. Yes. They're for what they're used for. But it depends on how pure you are, and it depends if you're the kind of person who looks up IDs. All right? Then it might, you know, one of the things I'm in the middle of doing the lecture for Chapter 7 for iOS. I'm doing that one online, and maybe that was you I was talking about this morning, but that particular chapter has got 5 different picker controls in it, and one of them is a dependent picker control. So you've got 2 columns. The column on the left has got a state, and the column on the right has got all the zip codes for the state. All right? So, I'm trying to remember what the point is now. What were we just talking about? What were we, geez.
I was just saying how, it's still, the news are,
Yes, it is keeping a, yes. Yes, right. Right, and what I was going to say though about that was if you looked at this file, it's just got all the states listed. Boom, 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 boom. They're in an array. All right, then it's got all the zip codes, so it's really in 2 different arrays. All right, now you'd have to be a hell of a purist or know exactly how many zip codes there were in the file or whatever, but if somebody removes something, and all I'm saying is if somebody looked at it and ever did print out the ID, you really should never be printing it out an ID where you're showing that to a user. You should never do that. Because in some ways, knowing somebody's user ID, in some ways, it's kind of like knowing their social security number or something else. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm a developer and I'm seeing all these different, wow, there's 100, I go from 100 through 200, I go straight. From 200, it jumps up to 612. They might try to go in and recover those numbers. That's what I'm saying. All right. Should it matter? No. It should never matter. All right. But stuff that bugs me to no end, you'd probably look at it and go, why does that even bother you? You know? It bugs the hell out of my wife that if she's driving, and she drives most of the time, she's a hell of a lot better driver than I am, but if she's driving and somebody cuts us off, if she doesn't beep, I will. I'll just grab that horn and start beeping it. That bugs the hell out of her. It's like, why do you even let that stuff bother you? Because I want to go out and just club them. Yeah. All right. So this is almost the same kind of thing that we had before, except before we were doing an insert, and now we're doing a delete. And that question mark is going to have to be bound. Notice you use I for integer. We used S before for string. And it's the ID. You say, wait a minute, it's ID. It should be movie ID. No, it's whatever you name the field up here. All right. So we're telling it to go and look at the ID that's associated with that hyperlink that we just put in, and we put the hyperlink in here. And notice when we put in the hyperlink, we have to append to that the associated ID. That's where you got that ID equal 1 or whatever. All right? That's the key to doing all this stuff. That's the key to making PHP and databases work, or ASP.NET and databases work, or Java and databases work, or anything and databases work. That's why you almost always have a primary key that's just called ID or some offshoot of ID. And that's why, again, typically it is going to be an auto-increment field. All right? So that was quick. All right? Just a little prelude for you, just so you see this. Again, as I mentioned to you, what we're going to go into then on Thursday, and this will be another kind of quick thing, but you see how much it's changed. All right? And what do I mean? Well, if we look in here, we go back to localhost, and we go back to this. was 3.5, then it was DIP Project, then it was Part 2. That's where we are right now. So we have to change is this. All right, this is going to have all our users in it, and it'll have the name of the user up there. It'll actually put the user's name in there. These will be all the movies that are not favorites. These will be all the movies that are favorites, and we'll have our little garbage can down here. That's what we're going to get to. So we're going to take this and convert it to that. Well, not to that. To whatever one I showed you. There, to that one. All right? And what maybe not, but maybe what you'll be amazed with, this is the index.php file. If we look at the page source, all right, well, that looks pretty similar, pretty typical, etc. Yeah, but what you're going to see is when we start looking through it, we're going to have tons of include files in our files. We want to write we want to write code once and then not write it again. Teresa was in a class yesterday. I was trying to preach to people in both classes. Don't repeat yourself. Dry. All right? That's one of the things that you're taught, the programmer's credo. You can write it once, write it once. Then you only have to test it once. All right? So that's where we'll pick it up then on Thursday.